What do these observations, these three observations, lead me to conclude about the debate last night? Leads me to conclude that there isn't much left in the McCain-Palin political arsenal. If you can't win on the facts, or on expertise, or on personally connecting with voters, how do you win? I'm expecting some hard negative politics just around the bend. We're joined now by Michael Dukakis, who is the former governor of Massachusetts and, of course, the 1988 Democratic presidential nominee. Governor Dukakis, thank you so much for joining us.
Rachel, good to be with you.
Talking Points Memo website today reported that John McCain's ad spending is almost exclusively now on negative ads. From your experience in electoral politics, how do you think that the Obama campaign and Barack Obama personally should respond to what I think is going to be an exclusively negative campaign for the next month?
Well, it's been an almost exclusively negative campaign for the last several weeks, Rachel. But I don't think Barack Obama is going to make the same mistake Mike Dukakis made in 1988 and, unfortunately, John Kerry made in 2004. They've expected this, they've anticipated it, and they don't sit around silently when these attack ads are run, particularly in the states where they're being seen most of the time. So I don't think you have to worry about the Obama campaign. They know what's coming. They'll be throwing the kitchen sink at them, and it will be heavy negative stuff. But I'm very impressed with the fact that Barack Obama and the people around him are ready for it. They respond to it very, very quickly. And at the same time, he's managed to maintain a very positive tone in his own campaign, and I think it's quite impressive.
When you say that you don't believe that Obama and Biden will make the same mistake that you made in 1988, that John Kerry made in 2004, I know that the biggest picture way to describe that is about fighting back. But what do you think specifically it means? Do you think that fighting back should come in the form of Barack Obama himself rebutting things forcefully? Should it be his surrogate? Should it be his campaign? Should he fight fire with fire?
All of the above. I mean, it depends. You may recall back in 1992, after my demise and Bill Clinton was running, he actually had a unit of about 10 people in his campaign who called themselves the Defense Department, and all they did was deal with the Bush attack campaign, which is just as tough on Clinton in 1992 as it was on me in 1988. But Clinton didn't make the mistake I made of essentially deciding that he wasn't going to respond to the attack campaign, and that unit of people in his campaign were on those attacks all the time. Now, sometimes he responded. Sometimes they responded with response ads. Sometimes it was surrogates, credible other folks who were called in to respond. But it's got to be a full court press, and you really can't let these attacks go unanswered longer than about 3 hours these days. But there's no question. If you remember Obama's speech after the North Carolina primary, which effectively clinched the nomination for him, he was very, very clear. He said, look, this is the kind of campaign that we're going to face. They're going to be attacking me. They're going to be trying to tell you things that aren't true, and we've got to be ready for it. And I must say that so far, and I assume this is going to continue for the last month of the campaign, they've done a terrific job.
Do you think that the Lee Atwater Republican playbook from 1988 looks all that much different than the Karl Rove Republican playbook from 2008?
Look, Rove was a protege of Atwater, and Schmidt is a protege of Rove. And I think one of the saddest things, Rachel, frankly, about the John McCain of today as opposed to the John McCain of 8 or 10 years ago is that a guy who was absolutely savaged by Rove and Bush in South Carolina in a despicable campaign in 2000 has now stooped to the point where he's hired a Rove protege to run his campaign. And I think that's kind of sad. I don't think the McCain of 8 or 10 years ago would have done that. But, you know, he's getting up there, and this is his last shot, and maybe he's decided that that's what you got to do to win. But it doesn't say much for him, and frankly, it's a long way from the guy that a lot of us, even if we didn't agree with him, admired maybe 6 or 8 or 10 years ago before he started this campaign.
Governor, I know that presidential campaigns don't often turn on the vice presidential nominee, but Sarah Palin has gotten so much attention this year. I think in part because Senator McCain is very well known to the American people. Governor Palin is new, interesting. She's a very entertaining persona. Do you see anything new or weird or worrying in the repeated misstatements we've seen from her, including in the debate last night?
Look, I don't know Sarah Palin. I mean, it's the first time I've really had a chance to see her in action, along with, I think, the vast majority of Americans. She strikes me as being somebody who's probably a pretty good governor, in a state which, incidentally, has fewer people than Barack Obama's state Senate district in Illinois. But I don't put her down for that. I mean, my sense is that she's done some interesting things. But when she gets into the national security and foreign policy area, Rachel, she's just lost. And I think it's one of the reasons why she's really dropping in public esteem and why a lot of people have been turned off to this selection of her. And it doesn't say anything about her role or her performance as governor, but she's just absolutely out of her league when it comes to these national security and foreign policy issues. And it showed last night, and it showed in the limited number of interviews that she's already had. And I think that's the thing that really has turned a lot of people off to her and to the guy that picked her. Because, you know, I mean, I made a ton of mistakes in 1988. One of the things I did right, I think, was to pick my running mate. And the single most important factor in picking a running mate has to be whether or not that person can be an excellent president if, God forbid, something happens to you. And by that criterion, this is just a pathetically poor selection in my judgment.
Governor Michael Dukakis, a man who ran for president at what turned out to be sort of the beginning of an economic downturn on the heels of 2 terms of Republican administration, well suited to give advice tonight. Really appreciate you joining us on the show tonight, Governor. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.